The city of Cedarville looked calm that evening. Street lights blinked on one by one, washing the narrow streets in yellow haze. The air was still, a little cold, and the sounds of the city had softened into a low hum, the kind of quiet that comes only after a long day. Marcus Jones sat behind the wheel of his gray sedan, one hand resting on the steering wheel, the other tapping gently to a rhythm in his head. He was exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that settled in your bones after 12 straight hours of meetings, phone calls, and decisions that always seemed to please no one completely. Being the mayor of Cedarville was a privilege, but it wasn't easy. He was looking forward to getting home, maybe heating up some leftovers and calling his daughter before bed. He didn't expect anything unusual to happen on the short drive through Maple Avenue, a route he'd taken hundreds of times before. But then came the lights. The sudden flash of red and blue exploded in his rearview mirror, cutting through the calm. Marcus froze for half a second, heart kicking up in his chest. Instinct took over. He slowed the car, checked his mirrors again, and pulled to the side of the road. He hadn't been speeding. He hadn't run a light. He hadn't done anything wrong. The tires crunched softly against the gravel shoulder. Behind him, the police cruiser rolled to a stop, headlights bright enough to wash the interior of Marcus's car in harsh white light. For a moment, neither driver moved. Marcus let out a breath, trying to stay calm. He lowered his window halfway and placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, just like he'd been taught long ago. A small act that meant survival more than politeness. A door slammed behind him. Boots hit the pavement. The beam of a flashlight sliced through the dark and found his face. "Evening," a voice said, firm, distant. Marcus swallowed and answered, "Good evening, officer." The man who approached looked to be in his 30s, broad frame, clean-shaven, the kind of posture that said he liked being in control. His nameplate read Reynolds. His tone carried the edge of someone already suspicious. "License and registration," Reynolds said. Marcus handed them over. "Of course. Is there a problem?" Reynolds looked at the papers for a long moment, then back at Marcus. "You were driving close to the center line. Almost crossed it." Marcus frowned slightly. "I see. I didn't realize. Where you headed?" "Home," Marcus said quietly. "Just left City Hall." Reynolds raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Uh-huh. Step out of the vehicle." Marcus blinked. "Step out? For what reason?" "Routine check." The word routine carried no comfort. He hesitated, but the officer's stare made refusal pointless. Marcus opened the door and stepped out slowly. The air was colder now, the wind brushing against his sleeves. "Keep your hands visible," Reynolds said. Marcus obeyed, silent, breathing carefully. Reynolds circled the car, flashlight gliding over every detail. The seats, the floor mats, the back seat. He opened the trunk without asking. Groceries. A gym bag. Nothing else. The minutes dragged on. The blue and red lights pulsed against the nearby houses, washing the quiet street in flickering color. People peeked through their curtains. One or two lingered on their porches, curious but unwilling to get involved. Finally, Reynolds turned back toward Marcus. "You seem awfully calm," he said flatly. "I'm just trying to cooperate," Marcus replied. "Most people get nervous when they're hiding something." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I have nothing to hide." Reynolds studied him, expression unreadable. "We'll see. Wait here." He returned to the cruiser and sat there for several long minutes, the radio murmuring inside. Marcus stood near the car, hands still visible, trying not to let the frustration reach his face. He'd had encounters like this before, polite, patient, careful. It didn't matter how successful you were, or what you drove, or what title sat before your name. Some people only saw one thing. When Reynolds finally came back, his clipboard was in hand. "There's a problem," he said. Marcus straightened. "A problem? Your record's showing some inconsistencies." Marcus frowned. "That can't be right. I haven't had a citation in years. Maybe you forgot something." "Step back for me." "I don't understand," Marcus said. "I haven't broken any law." Reynolds' jaw tightened. "You're resisting my instructions now?" "I'm just asking." "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Marcus froze. "Officer." I said turn around. The sound of metal cuffs clicking into place cut through the night. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of both engines. The drive to the Cedarville Police Department took less than 10 minutes, but it felt longer. Marcus sat in the back seat, wrists bound, watching the familiar streets blur by. The coffee shop he'd cut the ribbon for last month, the park he'd helped renovate, the mural he'd commissioned to celebrate the city's diversity. Now, those same streets passed under the glare of police lights. Inside the station, the fluorescent brightness replaced the calm of evening. Officers moved quickly, typing, talking, shuffling papers. The smell of burnt coffee lingered in the air. Reynolds led Marcus to the counter. Suspicion of illegal activity, he told the clerk without hesitation. The woman behind the counter, Officer Taylor, looked up sharply. What kind of illegal activity? Possible discrepancies in his record, Reynolds said. Taylor frowned. You verified his ID? I'm getting to that. Marcus spoke softly. My name is Marcus Jones. Middle name? Taylor asked, typing. Allen. She paused, eyes narrowing at the screen. Marcus Allen Jones, born March 8, 1976? Yes. Her eyes widened. She turned to Reynolds. You didn't tell me you brought in the mayor. Reynolds blinked. What? Taylor turned the monitor slightly toward him. That's Mayor Marcus Jones. Look. Reynolds stared at the screen, color draining from his face. That's not possible. It's right there, Taylor said. He's been in office since last year. For a long moment, no one spoke. Other officers nearby slowed their movements, listening. Marcus stood quietly. May I have my hands free now? Taylor nodded quickly. Yes, of course. She unlocked the cuffs, her voice apologetic. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know. Reynolds stood stiffly, clipboard hanging uselessly by his side. Marcus rubbed his wrists and took a deep breath. Officer Reynolds, he said quietly. You pulled me over, searched my car, and brought me here. You said I fit some kind of suspicion. What exactly did you see? Reynolds looked down. Just procedure, sir. Procedure, Marcus repeated softly. That word seems to cover a lot. Taylor spoke again. We'll file an internal report, Mayor Jones. I promise this won't go unaddressed. Marcus nodded once. Thank you. I'll be following up personally. He walked out of the precinct, the weight of the night pressing against his chest. Outside, the city lights stretched into the distance. He had always believed in Cedarville, in fairness, in service, in progress. But tonight had shown him that belief wasn't enough. Something deeper was broken. By sunrise, the story was already everywhere. Local news anchors repeated his name over and over. Mayor Marcus Jones wrongfully. Social media carried it farther, spreading anger and disbelief like wildfire. Marcus's phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters wanted interviews, council members wanted statements, friends wanted reassurance. But Marcus said little. He wanted to understand the facts before he spoke. At City Hall, he met with Chief Anderson, a tall, seasoned man with gray hair and a heavy conscience. Mr. Mayor, the chief began, I don't have words to express how sorry I am. Officer Reynolds has been suspended pending investigation. Marcus took a seat across from him. Apologies are appreciated, but they're not solutions. Chief, this isn't about me. It's about what it says about our city. Anderson sighed. I know, and we're going to fix it, whatever it takes. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we start today. By mid-morning, Cedarville was humming with rumor. At every cafe, every bus stop, people whispered the same question. Did that officer really arrest the mayor? For a town proud of its order and civility, the story struck like lightning. Inside City Hall, staff moved in low voices. Phones rang non-stop. Marcus walked through the front doors wearing the same navy suit from the night before. He hadn't slept. His face showed it, tired eyes but steady. Reporters swarmed the steps. Mayor Jones, was it racism? Will you press charges? Do you still trust your own police department? He said only, we'll talk soon, and kept walking. An hour later, the council chamber filled beyond capacity. Every seat taken, cameras lining the back wall. Chief Anderson sat near the front row, his uniform perfectly pressed, expression unreadable. Marcus stepped to the podium. When he spoke, his voice was low, measured, but it carried through every microphone. Last night I wasn't the mayor of Cedarville, he began. I was just a black man driving home. A hush swept across the room. You could hear the clicking of camera shutters. I was stopped, searched, and detained for no reason. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a failure of the very system meant to protect us. He paused, eyes moving across the faces before him. Some sympathetic, some uneasy. I won't use my position for revenge, but I will use it for reform. Councilmember Garcia leaned forward. What are you proposing? Mandatory anti-bias training for every officer. a transparent complaint process, and a civilian oversight board with real authority, not just a name on paper. Chief Anderson cleared his throat. Mr. Mayor, we'll cooperate with any investigation you order. This isn't just an investigation, Marcus said. It's the start of rebuilding trust. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some nodded, others looked nervous. For the first time in years, the council voted unanimously, yes. Reform would begin immediately. Outside City Hall, not everyone agreed. Talk shows debated the arrest. Online forums split between outrage and denial. Some residents demanded the officer's dismissal. Others insisted the mayor was exaggerating. But Marcus didn't argue publicly. He focused on quiet work, drafting policies, meeting experts, listening. Every night, he reread the police reports until the lines blurred. He knew that if he turned this moment into a political battle, it would fade like a headline. If he turned it into a policy, it might last. The press conference. When Marcus finally addressed the press, he stood outside City Hall beneath the marble columns. No script. Just conviction. This isn't about one man or one badge, he said. It's about every citizen who's ever felt powerless in the face of authority. Change begins today, not with anger, but with accountability. Reporters fired questions. Will Officer Reynolds be fired? That decision rests with the internal review, Marcus replied. But regardless of outcome, the system that allowed it will change. That clip ran on every major network that night. Calm, firm, impossible to twist. Within weeks, a task force formed, half officials, half civilians. They met in a plain conference room at the edge of downtown, whiteboards lining every wall. On one in blue marker, Marcus had written 4 words: respect, accountability, transparency, trust. Meetings ran late. Officers attended workshops led by bias experts. Community leaders joined roundtables with police supervisors. It was messy work, slow, full of tension, but progress came inch by inch. One evening, as rain tapped against the windows, Chief Anderson looked up from a pile of notes. Mr. Mayor, I've been in law enforcement 30 years, he said quietly. I've never seen a mayor sit through this kind of meeting. Marcus smiled faintly. Then maybe that's the problem. We've all been sitting apart too long. Training day. Months later, the reforms reached the training academy. A new program began: bias awareness and community engagement. Officers sat in rows while Dr. Elena Martinez, a specialist from New York, spoke about unconscious bias and emotional intelligence in policing. Her voice filled the room. The badge gives authority, but not superiority. The difference is respect. Marcus observed from the back, taking notes. Some officers listened intently. Others looked skeptical. But no one walked out. That to him was a start. During a break, one veteran approached. Mayor Jones, he said. I didn't think I'd learn anything today. Guess I was wrong. Marcus shook his hand. Change starts with that sentence. The reforms sparked a wave of community involvement. A town hall meeting was scheduled in the largest auditorium Cedarville owned. By 7 p.m., every seat was filled. Residents, students, shop owners, activists, off-duty officers. Marcus stepped onto the stage to applause mixed with curiosity. He looked over the crowd and began. This room represents what our city should be. Different voices, one conversation. He outlined the progress: new training, body cam transparency, creation of the oversight board. Then he opened the floor. A young woman, Lisa Grant, activist and law student, took the microphone. How do we know this isn't just politics? Words don't erase fear. Marcus nodded. You're right. They don't. But transparency and consistent action do. Hold us to that. A middle-aged man named Tom spoke next. I've lived here 30 years. I've seen change promised before. How will this be different? Marcus answered. Because this time the change is written into law, not speeches. And because I'll still be here when the cameras leave. The crowd applauded. Quietly at first, then louder. Even Chief Anderson, seated beside the stage, joined in. After the forum, not everything was smooth. Some officers felt betrayed, whispering that the mayor was making them villains. Marcus knew morale mattered as much as reform. He scheduled small group meetings at precincts across the city. No cameras, no staff, just honest talk. He listened more than he spoke. He heard stories of stress, fear, moments of pride and guilt. By the end, many officers admitted what few dared to say aloud. That bias wasn't always hate. It was habit, culture, unexamined reflex. and habits could change. A personal moment. One night, Marcus sat alone in his office, the city skyline reflecting off the window glass. On his desk lay the old citation Reynolds had issued him. Creased, faded, a relic of that humiliating night. He considered throwing it away, but instead placed it in a frame. Not as a wound, but as a reminder. The frame stayed on his desk from that day forward. 6 months later, the internal affairs report was complete. Officer Reynolds appeared before a disciplinary board. Marcus attended silently in the back row. The findings were clear: improper conduct, failure to verify identification, violation of protocol. Reynolds was dismissed from the force. As the decision was read, the officer stood motionless. When it ended, he turned, eyes meeting Marcus's across the room. For a brief second, pride and regret fought on his face. Then he walked out, head low. Marcus didn't smile. He felt no victory, only gravity. Change always came at a cost. Spring arrived, and with it a cautious optimism. Cedarville's police department introduced community service days. Officers volunteering in schools, parks, and shelters. Local papers ran new headlines. Trust rebuilt one step at a time. At the annual city celebration, Marcus addressed the crowd. Justice isn't a title or a punishment. It's how we treat each other when no one is watching. Cedarville stumbled, but we chose to stand back up together. Applause thundered through the park. For once, the sound felt like closure. That night, Marcus drove home along Maple Avenue. The same road where it had all begun. The street was quiet. The same streetlights glowed, the same hum of tires on asphalt. Up ahead, a police cruiser idled at the corner. Its lights flicked once in greeting. Marcus slowed. The officer inside raised a hand in salute. He returned it. A simple gesture, but it meant everything. He exhaled, finally at peace, and drove on toward home. Sometimes change doesn't start in grand speeches or polished boardrooms. Sometimes it begins in humiliation, in a mistake so public it forces truth into the open. For Marcus Jones, that mistake became a mission. For Cedarville, it became a turning point. Policies changed. Training deepened. Trust, once shattered, began to mend. No city is perfect. No reform erases pain. But progress lives in persistence, in the quiet hands that choose to build rather than burn. And as the lights of Cedarville shimmered across the night, one man's unjust arrest became the city's new beginning.